Hi, everybody. Welcome to the OnStage Blog Theater podcast. And today it's going to be really fun. We are here to jam out to some, some great jukebox musicals is the topic for today. It's going to be fun to talk about. And I'm theater critic Rachel Wagner. Jax is here.
Hi, Rachel. I'm so excited to dive into this with you.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. And we have a very special guest with us today. He's the director of a recent production of Mamma Mia that I really enjoyed. We have David Hanson here. And David, thank you so much for coming on talk with us.
Absolutely. My pleasure to be here.
Yeah. So this is your first time on the podcast. So I'm going to give you a chance to introduce yourself and tell us how did you end up getting involved in community theater and in directing, and what's your backstory?
Uh,
I know it's a lot.
long and varied.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I started honestly uh, in junior high. Right after I moved to Utah, I had one elective class that I needed to fill. I think it was eighth grade.
Uh-huh.
And I literally went eeny, meeny, miny, mo down the list of classes that was available in the period that I needed. And it just happened to be Intro to Speech and Theater.
Oh,
And ever since then, umpteen million years ago, that got me hooked. And I through college, through after college into my professional career, regardless of what I've done, I've always been working on some kind of theater project.
yeah. Do you remember what like your first show was that you did?
Yes. I was 14 years old. I was Avram the bookseller in Fiddler on the Roof.
Oh, nice.
What a great show to start off with.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and a show I've
Yeah.
never done since. So
Oh, well, you should talk to everybody at Sandy Arts Guild. Get them to
yeah,
do it.
it's come up.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah. Oh, that's really good. So I think you've done both acting and directing.
Yes.
I guess what do you like about both sides, being on both sides of the production?
Uh, Honestly, to me, the whole thing is about process. Even acting, I have some friends of mine that I joke with that you are either an actor who hates to rehearse but has to get through it so that you can perform, and those actors who love the process so much that you could finish rehearsing a show and never put it on for an audience and you wouldn't be upset. And I kind of
Yeah.
fall into the latter. So honestly, making the switch from acting to directing, kind of love the anonymity of it. I love being able to just sit back and piece the story together and be involved in every little aspect of how everything fits, and then just kind of sit back and let it be its own thing. And it's like watching your child go off to school.
Yeah, where do you stand on that, Jax, as far as like the rehearsing versus the performing, all of that?
I think I haven't heard that before, and I really like that. As you were talking, David, I was thinking that, um, I'm an actor and I've done theater and TV and film, and I really like both. But the thing that I love about theater is getting to rehearse. And both mediums are great when you're actually doing it. But I feel like with the TV film side, there you don't get to do as much actual acting as you do when you're rehearsing a play. And I think, yeah, I feel the same way. I love the process. I think it's fun to open the show and to be in a long running show or even a show that's a short run, but the rehearsal process is just so much fun.
That's cool. Yeah, I can imagine that. Well, and especially because when you're doing like film and TV, it's just so repetitive, right? You just do.
Yeah, I feel like there's a lot of times with film and TV where it's like you do a rehearsal, but it's quick rehearsal while they're setting everything up and like really delving in. You don't
Yeah.
get that chance as much. And yeah, I just feel like you really get to soak it all in when you have, even if you have a short rehearsal process, you're still getting to soak it in more than you do on a film or
Yeah.
TV.
Yeah.
Yeah, and,
Yeah.
and I think a lot of that too is just the fact that in TV and film, and this is kind of the reason why I stopped doing TV and film like 10, 15 years ago. You don't see the whole process. When you're on stage, you're working with other actors, you're watching other scenes, seeing the process that goes through the whole gamut of the show. When you're doing TV and film, you do your 5 minutes, you go home, and you have no idea how it fits into anything else.
Yeah, it might even be cut.
Yeah,
A lot of times.
I've had that happen a few times.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And in theater, you get to do it in order, which is story. You're like, oh, I actually get to go on the journey rather than like, okay, wait, what part of the movie is this? What's already happened? And like, that's okay because that's like its own thing and it's a different kind of homework. But yeah, the magic of theater, I mean, there's just nothing like it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I was really impressed with Mamma Mia. And I said my review that, I love a good rom-com, of course, but Mamma Mia's thin plot can be a little much for me. And I've left bored, more bored than entertained in the past. But I said, well, I'm glad I took a chance on Sandy Arts Guild and saw Mamma Mia this weekend because I ended up loving this production. And I said, while the cast was brilliant and terrific in their roles, I have to give the most credit to the director, David Hanson. He did such an incredible job with attending to every detail of the production. The set by Dwight Western was massive and impressive, but it's how it was used that stood out. It's nearly every scene. If there was something going on in the foreground, actors if there was something going on in the foreground, actors were also doing something in the background, usually not even lit, but they're opening shutters or talking to a neighbor. This made everything a richer experience. So, way to go.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
And you're right, Dwight. I've worked with Dwight a number of times now at Sandy, and the man is incredible.
It was impressive, Jax. It was like they had the full inn built up. It had two stories. Yeah, it was really good.
Oh gosh, that sounds amazing.
Yeah.
David, do you have input with the scenic design or the lighting design and other things too when you're working with your team?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We generally, I mean, we'll meet 2 or 3 months ahead of time at a minimum and just go over concepts and ideas. And good designers, can come in with their ideas and they've read the script and they have their conceptions of things, and we get to kind of like merge and make our own little joint view of how the world works. So yeah, I mean, I love being part of that process too, because it's just another element of storytelling.
Yeah. Well, I'm curious. So, what's your overall approach for community theater in general? I mean, when you look at it, are you looking at it as like putting on something semi-professional, or are you looking at it like what's your initial approach to doing any piece of community theater?
I mean, honestly, it can vary because one theater company compared to another theater company, even though they may both be community theater, so to speak, their resources are different, their talent pool is different, budgets are different, the space is different. So I can't really let myself, take a similar approach to every single show.
Yeah.
So I mean, first and foremost, it's understanding the space and understanding the resources available. Then I'll kind of craft a plan from there.
Well, so when you got assigned to Mamma Mia, how did you feel? Were you were you nervous, excited? How did you feel?
It's a quote Sondheim: excited and scared. Um, it's not a show that is usually one that attracts me immediately. I mean, I'm with you. It's a little thin on plot.
Yes.
And it's one that they've done a great job trying to weave in a storyline, but they didn't really necessarily commit to it.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the dialogue, and I don't mean to disparage the show because I think it's a fun show, but a lot of the dialogue is really there just to fill 30 seconds between previous song and the next song.
Yeah.
And book wise, I felt like there's so much more they could have done with it. But that was one of the things that we took a look at as soon as I got offered the show was, okay, so how do we pull as much of the story out of this as possible? We, had such limited time within those scenes to try to piece it together. So that was really my first biggest challenge and the first thing that kind of got me nervous about the whole thing. But I love a challenge. So yeah, I mean, if somebody tells me this show is something completely different than what I think it could be, I'm going to lean on my thoughts.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. What do you think, Jax, about Mamma Mia? How do you feel about it?
Yeah, I would definitely echo what both of you have so astutely said. I mean, I think it's fun. I think you're exactly right about the plot, but I definitely I love ABBA. So, it's like you're dancing along, you're singing along, you're having a good time. I'm not thinking about it too much as far as like an intellectual exercise. Like this doesn't really make a lot of sense, but I have a good time with it.
Yeah, yeah. Do you feel like there's a particular scene or particular song that really is like the linchpin for the show? Do you really wanted to nail?
Um, yeah, there was a couple of them. I mean, definitely Winner Takes It All is, I mean, that's
Yeah.
really from the interviews and whatnot I read, that was how the show came about. The woman who wrote the book was looking at that song going, that is the crux of a show right there. So that was definitely an important one. But there's so many, as much as I love the big numbers, Mamma Mia and Money, 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 that you get the chance to get these big flashy numbers with everybody dancing on stage. I love the fact that there was enough storytelling in ABBA's songs, even without, the show itself, that the really intimate ones like Name of the Game, even SOS a little bit, those were the ones that I had the most fun with just because that that really is where a lot of the storytelling is that's not in the scene work. So the more I feel like we nailed those, the more wrapped up in the characters we were going to be, not just relying on the nostalgia of it being ABBA music.
Yeah, yeah. I think probably my favorite song, well, it's one of the more underrated songs, is I really do like Does Your Mother Know? That's one of my favorites. I think that's
That is
so
such a
funny.
fun storyline.
Yes.
And
And
we had a kid who just was so comedically awkward
yeah,
that it
they were
he
good.
was brilliant.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, and I liked Sarah McDonald as
Mm-hmm.
Tanya. She was really good. She
She's
was
amazing.
she was one of my favorites. But the Sophie and Donna were also really strong.
I was amazed when we put them in the room together for callbacks. We
Uh-huh.
just all kind of looked at each other and went, "Oh, okay, well, there's that then."
Yeah. Yeah,
Had
I
you
would think
worked
it would
with
be
any of the
challenging.
actors before, David? The actors of Mamma Mia?
What was that?
Had you worked with any of the actors before that you cast in Mamma Mia?
Probably about a third of them. Some of them I've worked with at Sandy. Um, the woman who played Donna is actually an old friend of mine that I've done a number of shows with in the past. And as soon as I looked through the script again, I went, "Oh, I should give her a call and get her to come to callbacks."
Was it hard casting the three dads? Was it
Yeah,
challenging?
actually, I mean, there's no secret in Utah that trying to get guys to come audition for a show is a little problematic.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, I think we auditioned 180 people, um, and about 20 of them were male. So we used almost everybody that we we had show up at auditions male wise. So yeah, we kind of had to do a little stretching and a little digging to make sure we had the dads because also men of age
Right.
are a little difficult to find in Utah. So we pulled in a couple of favors and grabbed some people that we knew we could work with, and
Mm.
fortunately worked out incredibly well. And even the fact that I say we pretty much had to cast all the men in the show, there wasn't any of them that ended up being kind of one of those, okay, well, I guess it's community theater, and so you can forgive them not being great, but they were all amazing. It was, we lucked out hardcore.
I agree. It was a very strong cast, and you'd be so excited, Jax, because this thing killed it at the selling. I was gonna go see it a second time, and it was all sold out. I even messaged them and I said, hey, do you have any like family seats? Because sometimes they, reserve, for family. I was like, do you have any family seats or anything like? No, nothing.
Yeah.
You're like, how can I get into this show again? What do I need to do?
Yep. No, we could have easily, run another week if we had access to the space. But as it was, we added 3 performances and still sold all those out.
Yeah. It was a huge, huge hit. Which is always, I'm so happy, because especially when something's so well done. I want to see any company succeed, but when I think something's really well done, it makes me very happy. And especially being this huge auditorium, it's big high school auditorium.
Yeah.
And that's a challenge, like just navigating that big booming space.
Oh yeah, that space is so unique. Yeah, there's a whole myriad of challenges. This is the 6th show I've done in that space, directorially, and the sound issues, the sightline issues. It's such a beautiful and amazing space, which with such unique challenges.
Yeah, it's just one of those big booming high school auditoriums, that's really, really hard. Really satisfying as a director to see all the pieces come together, especially that first night must just be like really exciting.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It's like having a 50,000 piece puzzle and finally putting in the last piece.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you have a special seat that you sit in? Do you watch every show? Or are you just kind of like moving around in the space?
Rehearsal wise, I am all over, because I feel like I have to see the show from every angle possible before I feel like it can be up on its feet. Honestly, I do kind of like to move around. I didn't get the chance too much with Mamma Mia because everything was sold out.
It was sold out.
Yeah, usually it's like, okay, I'll go sit in whatever seat's available.
Right.
No, I got to sit right behind the booth every night because that's what they reserved for us. But I don't go necessarily to every night, but depending on the show, I do like to get through, a good majority of them.
Yeah. Well, let's dive in and talk about jukebox musicals in general, what we think about the medium, I guess, or the genre. And there's sort of 2. I have an article that I wrote called Thoughts on Jukebox Musicals. Do they suck or are they fun? And I'll put a link in the description.
It's a great article for those of you who haven't read it.
Thank you.
Wonderful.
There's basically 2 kinds of jukebox musicals. You have your biopic kind, like Jersey Boys, Tina Turner, MJ the Musical, things like that, where you get the life story of your band or singer and the songs along with it. And then you have what I call the story kind, so where they take this batch of songs and then they craft a story around said songs. So you've got Mamma Mia, you've got Head Over Heels, you have American Idiot, shows like that. And there's also ones that are more like reviews, musical reviews, like Ain't Misbehaving, something like that would be that. So Jax, what would you say is do you have a preference to your type of jukebox musical, and how do you feel overall about the genre?
So it's interesting because I would say my 2 favorite jukebox musicals, one falls into one category, one falls into the other. I love Beautiful, which is the biopic that you referenced, Carole King. And then the other one is Jagged Little Pill. And when I went to see Jagged Little Pill, I didn't really know much about it beforehand. I thought it was going to be like an Alanis Morissette biopic situation. And it's not at all, but I was stunned and blown away about with the way that the story came together. It felt very organic. It was really fantastic. Lauren Patton won the Tony for her performance, but she got a standing ovation like pretty much every night when she would do her big number. So I really, really enjoy those two. I think that as you were talking about with Mamma Mia, and there are others that are maybe less a little bit less compelling with the plot. But overall, I think that, there are songs that I usually enjoy. They're popular for a reason. So I think that the whole concept of a jukebox musical is a really good gateway to get people into the theater that might not otherwise go to the theater.
Well, there's also too, I mean, shows that we don't even realize are jukebox musicals because they're such classics now, but something like Singing in the Rain, for instance,
Yes.
was a jukebox musical in its day. And so it's kind of interesting. What do you think, David, about this?
I'm of a couple of different minds. um, I I mean, I'm always going to be drawn towards story and character. It's as an actor, as a director, as a writer, that's kind of always what I gravitate towards. So probably I'm going to default to liking those that have a story more often than not. Um, and a lot of the biopic musicals, do carry on a fairly strong story. Some of them a little less so. And then you have some, and I'm not dissing anybody's taste, but then you have, the things like Forever Plaid and stuff that I'm kind of like, yeah, well, it's cute, but I could just go to a concert of a covered band singing all these songs and it would be the same thing.
Yeah.
So ultimately, to me, what it comes down to is I enjoy a show in general, but particularly with jukebox musicals, I enjoy a show that knows what it is and commits to that. Um, there were moments in Mamma Mia in particular where I kind of feel like, well, you couldn't quite tell whether they were trying to just cater to the story itself and try to have the song fill in some kind of gap, or if they just threw that song in somewhere just because everybody loves that song and it's nostalgia, and so we just have to have it in there. And there's a lot of musicals that I think kind of do that a little bit. So that's probably the only thing that really turns me off the jukebox musicals is just you're trying to be something and then you have these moments where you're kind of breaking that because you think you need to add something popular, if that makes sense.
Yeah. No, I agree. I've certainly seen both types done well. I would lean more towards the story type though myself. But what I wish that more of them took the approach of Million Dollar Quartet. I don't know if you've ever had a chance to see that one, but instead of trying to do like the whole life of a particular band or singer, it's just about this one, and I think it's fictional actually. I don't even think it's real, but whatever. Yeah. It's just one moment, and you get to, so that way it's not like just so predictable, but you get, and then what's nice too about Million Dollar Quartet is you get the quartet, so you get music from Elvis Presley, Jerry Lee Lewis, Carl Perkins, and Johnny Cash. So it's not just kind of like check. It's a little bit, what's gonna come up next, what song's gonna come up next. And I kind of wish that more of them took that approach, as opposed to just feeling like a karaoke session.
Yeah.
Of the the best songs of the mix. And I know that the critics in New York hated it, but I really enjoyed Head Over Heels. I saw it at the Grand. They did it a couple of years ago, and I really liked it. It was fresh. It was funny. It was, I mean, maybe it helped. I'm not that familiar with the Go-Go Girls songs, so it didn't feel recycled, didn't feel karaoke to me. But I really enjoyed that one. I also really enjoy All Shook Up. I think that because they bring in the 12th Night element and the Elvis songs, so it's got like a solid story in with it. So Yeah, I mean, both of them, like I said, can be good. I did see Tina on Broadway, and she was just so amazing. I was just like, I mean, everything about the show was very serviceable, but she was like, wow. And so it was, great to see. But yeah.
That is like such an iconic once in a lifetime role to get to play. And those songs, it's like, oh my gosh.
Well, and it was amazing too. They go through the entire show. It must have just been exhausting. And then she did like 2, 3 encores songs. Just like, wow, man.
The stamina.
Yeah. That was impressive. That was impressive. But I think of when it doesn't work, it can be brutal. Like I recently saw the touring company of Girl from the North Country. I did not enjoy that at all. It was I thought actually really poorly directed. There was so much happening on the stage, and whereas I was mentioning before with Mamma Mia that having that background work was effective in making it richer. In this case, there was just too much happening on the stage, and so you didn't know where to like focus your eyes, and it was all lit. It wasn't just some background thing, and there were all these stories happening, and then the songs had nothing to do with the stories that were happening. Literally, the singer would be off to the side, and then would sing a Bob Dylan song, and you're like, what? That has nothing to do with this pregnant woman. Like, what? I just didn't. It was really bad, and I was just, I don't know. I just didn't like it at all.
I kind of felt the same way a while back. And let me preface this by saying I am a massive Billy Joel fan. Have been all my life. Moving Out, not the best show. It had kind of that feel of, yeah, sure, there's a lot of storytelling in there, but okay, are we making this like a thorough story between these two characters? Are we just utilizing this as a way to play Billy Joel music, or is this just a 2-hour dance recital?
Right.
There was so much back and forth with it. I felt like I couldn't settle on one aspect of the show that I liked.
Yeah. Yeah. What do you think? What's the one that you weren't as big a fan of, Jax?
So I actually also don't love Forever Plaid. And I feel like for a moment in time, everybody was doing it.
Yeah.
That doesn't help.
It doesn't help. It's just that's not because I agree with you, David. It's like, okay, well, then we'll just go and we'll watch a review or something like that. I'm very interested, Rachel. I don't know Girl from North Country. I would be interested to see it just because that sounds so disjointed and bizarre that I'm just like curious to see it
in
action.
Like, and it was a shame because I mean, if they had just advertised it as a Bob Dylan cover concert and hadn't even tried to do the story, then I would have preferred that because they were very talented singers, of course.
Yeah.
But I was just like, what is happening here? What's going on?
Sometimes amazing performers still can't save a bad show.
No, they can't. But I would say most of the time, the jukebox musicals that don't work are because I'm just bored. The story is just not interesting. It's not in a like even I think with MJ the musical, I think they did what they could. Like unless you're gonna go really dark with his life. Like, I mean, I think they had to keep it kind of, cursory and keep it kind of and so it is just kind of a karaoke session. But it was elevated by the very strong dancing that was really good, but it was kind of boring.
I completely agree that the thing with MJ for me was that, yeah, obviously that Michael Jackson was an incredibly, I mean, outrageously talented performer, a real singular talent who had a very like complicated life. But the talent on stage at MJ the Musical was just mind-blowing to get to watch it. But I agree with you. Rachel was a little bit like, oh, okay, like when I was watching like the dancing, the singing, the performing, like the MJs at various stages of his life were fantastic. But yeah, I mean, yeah, because what else can you do really with that story?
Yeah.
Like you said, you want to take it dark, dark, dark.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think in some respects you kind of have to figure out which way you're going with a show like that, and just lean into it.
Yes.
If you're going to tell the dark story, tell the dark story. If the music fits into that, great. Do what it is. Don't try to make it something that it's not. But if you don't want to tell the story, then do a review style show with MJ songs, and that would work well too.
Yeah, I think that probably would have been better. Yeah, I kind of wish that more of them would take the ain't misbehaving track and not even worry about it. Just do a review.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It really depends on your source material, honestly.
Yeah.
I mean, there are artists who lend themselves to storytelling.
Yeah.
And there are some that just don't. And trying to fit that into a story is more challenged than it's worth, I think, sometimes.
Did you see Jax, the Britney Spears one?
No. Wait, is that Hit Me Baby?
Yeah,
One
but it was
time?
like I think it was like a fairy. I think they did like fairy tale. I think it was like a fairy tale. Once upon a hit me one more time or something like that.
Yeah, I didn't see it. I'm wondering how that was. I'm very curious.
Yeah, once upon a hit me one more time.
Oh my gosh, that was
once upon one more time was
that's hilarious.
And I it didn't last very long. So it but I heard that it was actually like pretty visually inventive and pretty cool. But yeah, I was surprised that it didn't do better. And I was really bummed about this Huey Lewis musical that just opened and closed, because I heard that was like a really good rom-com. So I was hoping, let me find out what it was called. It's called The Heart of Rock and Roll. And I'm sure that we'll be getting that in a regional theaters eventually, but I'd heard that one was quite fun and a rom-com.
I was looking forward to seeing that one. It went away too quick.
It's too bad that it didn't do better. It's anybody who puts on these Broadway shows, they got guts, because what makes something a hit? Who knows?
Yeah, and sometimes like things just need to marinate for a while, and there's not really enough time to let it, find its audience sometimes. I mean, that's just what's hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about,
and sometimes you have something in development now, and 2 years from now, that story becomes so much more irrelevant.
Yeah.
The timeliness of it it kills shows sometimes.
That's exactly right.
I wondered about that when I saw Almost Famous. I bet when that was first in development, it was like super, like, I'm sure it was, when Jersey Boys and all these shows, were doing super well. By the time it got to Broadway, it just fell really flat. And the problem with that show, I enjoyed it overall. But the problem is that they didn't have enough jukebox songs or enough new songs. It was like this weird mesh. So all of a sudden you'd hear an Elton John song and I was like, what's happening? It was a little bit weird.
You do it.
Also, the other problem with that show is everything's happened to a 17-year-old, which is just a little bit awkward. And I think when the movie came out, like, we just weren't as sensitive to those issues. And so I think they probably should have aged him a little bit, just make him 19.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. Nothing really significantly would, like, he can still be like an immature 19-year-old, but we can feel better about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, the big one, I guess, on Broadway right now that's been very successful, and Juliet. Have you seen that, Jax?
No, and I've heard most people I know that have seen it love it. I have one friend who he was like,
not for me.
Yeah, not for me. But I've heard it's really well done and a lot of fun. Like, people really seem to be loving it.
Yeah. I haven't seen it. I haven't catched it. But yeah, I've heard mixed things. I've heard some I feel like my critic friends hated it, didn't like it. But then like my average ordinary show friends, they like really enjoyed it. So
it's funny because my friend that didn't like it, he's not a critic, but he's an actor who I think has the brain and the taste of a critic and can very much like articulate why he likes something or why he doesn't like something.
Yeah.
So yeah, I do take his opinion quite seriously.
Yeah. Well, I asked on Facebook on Utah Theater Lovers group what they thought of jukebox musicals. Jukebox musicals, love them, hate them. We want your thoughts. And so Ashton Ross Kelly says, I hate them. You'd think that without having to worry about writing the music, they'd have plenty of time to write a stellar plot. But that's pretty much never the case. The plots are always very lackluster or just don't make any sense at all. Having to fit a story around pre-existing songs makes everything flow so strangely and often gives me that, and now I'm going to sing a song about it vibe. Some jukebox musicals are worse than others, and some I don't hate entirely. I never blame people or think less of them for liking a jukebox musical. Well, that's good. You should think less of people. But there's just much better stuff out there, in my opinion. If the goal of the jukebox musical is to appeal to the masses and entice people who aren't usually into musical theater to come see a show, why not make it a better show? If my first experience with musical theater was Mamma Mia, I don't think I would have ever seen another. But that's an interesting point, though, that she makes, though, about these shows do. I mean, we were talking about the difference between my critic friends and my normal show loving friends, that these shows are kind of made for the masses, to appeal to the masses. I don't know. What do you think about that, Jax?
I think it's an interesting thing, a point that I didn't think of. It's like, okay, so if you want it to bring people in, then you better give them a good show. I'm not sure that they think that they're not getting a good show, though.
Yeah,
That's where
so.
it's like, how do you tease that out? Like maybe they just love it because it's the music that they love and it doesn't matter. You know, they're having a good time. So yeah, I am curious about that.
Yeah. I mean, David, what do you think about that? As far as do you think that these do you think these jukebox musicals are good gateway drugs to get into Broadway?
Yeah, I mean they can be.
Yeah.
It's every show is different, but I do think the ultimate rule of theater is know your audience.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to tend to want to go see shows with more storyline, with a more cohesive tie between the music and the dialogue. But I'm in a separate audience than somebody who's just an ABBA fan who wants to go see Mamma Mia, or just a Tina Turner fan, or Alanis Morissette, whatever. So I think for the right people, and if it's approached the right way, it's absolutely a gateway drug to theater.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like not every. It's kind of like I'm not always up on a Friday night to watch Schindler's List. That's just not going to be always what it's a tremendous film. It's an incredible masterpiece. Mm-hmm. But sometimes I want to watch Return to Me or Mamma Mia or something like that. It's like, and so I think you kind of need both. You need to have something for everybody and every mood on the Broadway docket. Okay, a couple other comments. Marinda Maxfield, she says, I don't hate them. They can be fun. Art is art, and any type of show is valid. I get why people don't like them in general, but I think every show is worth at least one watch. And then Ben Brockbank says, it completely depends. Weak story or bad songs can kill it. Have a strong one or the other, and it's great. Have both be done well, and it's a powerhouse. So yeah.
Fair comment.
Yeah, and I'm excited because I actually have never seen Jersey Boys, and Pioneer Theater is doing it next month, and so I'm finally going to get a chance to see Jersey Boys. So that'll be fun. But I know that's one of the most popular ones. And
people have fun with that one.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's such a shame that the movie wasn't better. I don't know what
Yeah.
Clint Eastwood. Why do you have Clint Eastwood direct that movie? It makes no sense.
A
What?
little bit out of his wheelhouse.
No. Marin, my friend Marin says, I think there are a million ways to tell a story, and I kind of hate gatekeepers of storytelling. Do I love all jukebox musicals? Absolutely not. But some are absolutely joyful. I also think some use popular songs in pretty genius ways. And Juliet has some great examples of this. So does Mamma Mia, though I confess I have grown tired of that one. That's my own fault because I'm a critic and it's overdone. Pop songs are written differently than musical theater songs, and the purists will tell you that this makes the jukebox a lesser form of theater. However, I believe theater is storytelling, plain and simple, and there are no lesser or greater, just different. Some for some for others. Some hate the jukebox, and that is okay. I enjoy some of them, but not others. I don't like a lot of the classic musical theater, but some people adore them. But I don't want to limit the storytelling. So I think that's interesting, the point about how some people feel that pop music is lesser than in that it sort of dilutes your classic musical theater elements. I don't know. What do you think about that, Jax?
Well, yeah, I understand. See, I definitely don't think it's lesser. I agree with this person. What was her name?
Marin. Yeah.
Marin. I definitely agree with Marin that like I don't think there's a hierarchy of it. I can see why if you are a classical musical theater lover, why you feel like it was jarring, but also musical theater has evolved so much and or changed. You know, we have our classic big book musicals. We have Sondheim, which is way different than that. We have jukebox musicals. We have like there's so many ways to tell a story through song that I think sort of placing a hierarchy on it is definitely a mistake.
Yeah. And like I said, there's things that probably people group into the classical musical theater, which actually are jukebox musicals.
Yes.
And they don't even know.
Yep.
You know, so that's interesting. Very good. Thank you so much for joining us. I don't know if you have social media or anything like that you want to share, but we really appreciate you coming on talking with us.
Yeah, it's a pleasure being here.
Yeah. Well, make sure that you follow everything going on at OnStage Blog Theater Podcast. Check out our playlist with all of our episodes. We have a ton of fun topics stage related that we talk about. And of course, all the great articles on the site. So take a look at that. And Jax, where can people find you?
Jacklyn Collier on Instagram.
And you can find me at Rachel's Reviews, all over social media, iTunes, YouTube, on Rotten Tomatoes, and at rachelsreviewstheater.com. And I'll put that article on Jukebox Musicals in the description. Definitely check it out. So thanks so much, everybody. And we'll talk to y'all later. Bye.